I'll see you all next time, where I'll either be talking about Dominions or Mech Warrior 2.
Dominions 5, The Warriors of Faith.
Dominions, a game of religion, magic, idols, and war. Dominions started out as a passion project in 1997 by the Swedish studio Illwinter Games, with only two primary members, Johan Carlson and Christopher Osterman. I say primary because, from what I understand, they work on Dominions in their spare time. 20 years and these guys have been dishing out new iterations of this and their other series, Conquest of Elysium, whenever they can. The cornerstone of Illwinter Games is depth and lasting playability at the cost of presentation and quick accessibility. This is made obvious immediately. The game isn't the prettiest, and it's looked this way for 20 years. But even with the poor appearance, and the YouTube soundtrack, Dominions continues to change and bloat into this massive mess of unique mechanics and systems that no other game really does the same. Dominions 5 Warriors of Faith is the ultimate god gamer game. And I'm tired of staring at this script, so I'm gonna try and make this quick. Starting from the beginning, selectable nations depend on the era chosen. Early, middle, and late. In lore, the early age is a time of magic, mages, and monsters, while the late age is the dominant rise of evil, iron, and the humanoids. In game, it's the difference between fun, diverse nations and magic, versus man, the species, not the nation, rampant blood magic, and with the... My first playthrough was as middle-aged Aramor, the Ashen Empire. I actually managed to win my first game, through the power of the long-dead Bone Swarm. This is where I learned my first lesson. Know your nation. The nation screen shows every unit that the selectable nation produces. You can right-click or mouse over almost any unit, item, stat, spell to get details about it, which is extremely useful and something I wish more games did. Learn every unit's basic needs and abilities. Their strength, weapons, defense, health, protection. Are they expensive in gold but cheap in resources? Are they fairies? Are they stupid? Or are they dead? Can they fly? Are they fish? You don't have to memorize everything about every unit, but it's really good to keep a broad idea. Airmore is a bad example of this. There is no way to know a unit's stats until you resurrect them, because Airmore is a conjuration nation. For some reason, it isn't possible to check summon spells. All you get is a description. So, I was just pushing out as many boners and rotting meat bags as I could. It worked, but it could have worked better if I had built more powerful units and sacreds instead of thousands of skelly boys and bloated corpses. I would recommend a nation to start with, but there are 86, with more being added. Practically every nation plays differently, whether it's their magic focus, army set, or national abilities. Everybody has their own opinion on who you should start with. I enjoyed playing the Bone Swarm, but Middle-Age Ulm is a universally accepted starter. But no Dominion is complete without a god to rule it. The main goal of Dominions is ascending a pretender to godhood, with an entire nation at your disposal. Godhood can be reached one of three ways. 1. Claiming all thrones of ascension, making a nation's pretender the one true god. 2. Clearing all opposing dominions, removing all heretics and false pretenders' religious claims. Or 3. Killing all false prophets and pretenders, and raising their nation, removing all physical claims. For this, every nation has their own selection of pretenders, and each pretender has their own base stats. The selection of pretenders doesn't have to follow a nation's magic path or ideology. You can have a nation of fireboys and blood mages, with a pretender that's just a near invulnerable pile of bones, that has to teleport to move, and knows water and earth magic. Magic affects the ability to find magic sites, create magic items, available spells after research, and available bless effects. You need at least 4 and 1 path to select a bless effect, or 3 in each elemental or sorcery paths. Most people agree that blood and astral magic should be avoided by beginners, because it's too confusing for a new player to understand. My main experience with one of these nations went poorly. I decided to test Late Age Abyssia and managed to spawn on a small island. After conquering it, and another island to the south, I met my worst enemy yet. Water. But not just any water. Oh no, this was land blocked by a massive stretch of sea. I tried everything I could to cross. I even built an army of holy flying units. Alas, I was trapped in my own realm of oblivion. It wasn't the nation's fault, but I spent 2 or 3 hours trying to fix it, and I'm still salty. But gods aren't only good for magical wine and crumbs. They can also help meet a greater recruitment cost, improve magic research, or mass kill populations by tipping the scales in your favor. Starting from the left, there's Dominion, which isn't really a scale. It affects your nation's starting religious claims. Important for maintaining your religious stronghold. Rule of thumb, never go below 5, or you will be shamed by the more established cults and likely get dom killed. Next are Order and Turmoil, and Production and Sloth. These 2 scales will mostly affect recruitment and resources. A nation of giants and bear riders is hard on supplies, while a nation of literally walking dead costs nothing in supplies and almost no equipment upkeep. Hot and cold is... I'm not sure how these affect everything really. Some nations have a preference, and I think having units in the wrong climate can affect their fatigue and movement. But other than that, I'm not sure how it works. Growth and death affects growth and death. The luck and misfortune affects the chances of events, which can either end in gold or heresy. And then the last one is magic and drain, which affects RP? I know RP is for researching spells, but what about the description? It talks about spellcasting being less fatiguing and increased magic resistance in a land of drain. So, where is it? Almost everything has a description, and almost everything else has stats to show. But sometimes, you'll have to do some reading. I checked the manual, and there's more effects than I knew about. I thought plus 10 luck was broader, and meant better events, more chances of finding magic sites, and improved dice rolls. But all it's really good for is more, and probably better, events. After that, there's world settings and rule settings, which I did not mess with too much, seeing as I managed to landlock myself on the base settings and wanted to avoid breaking the game's natural flow. So, hold on. That doesn't sound anything like a dice. Alright, we can move on. This is the part I've struggled with the most, and it'll be the biggest mess. But I think I'm finally comfortable with saying Dominions is a grand strategy game. But unlike most other GSGs, or most strategy games, there is no grand scale progression. Populations differ depending on the provinces, which affects income, production, and recruitment points, but the death growth rate mostly depends on the scales. The only infrastructural improvement is deciding whether or not to build a castle, church, or lab. All 3 cost a lot and allow more units, but the capital starts with everything, and depending on your nation, makes mass construction mostly worthless. There is no unit research or discovered improvements, only forced land acquisition and pagan magic. Dominions is a war game at heart. It was directly inspired by old tabletop games like SPQR and Warhammer Fantasy Battles. There is no single-player diplomacy, so any attack means endless war. Gameplay is turn-based, and every action works around a Dominion's random numbered dice roll. Basically, roll 2d6. If individual d6 equals 6, subtract 1 and re-roll. And, in Dominions, instead of managing tactics on the battlefield, you plan before battle. You can give your army's groups general commands to follow during battle, which they will never stray from until retreat or death. But battles are auto-calculated at the end of each turn. The only player battle interaction is using the commander's extended abilities to truly strategize by choosing what spells to cast. The only battle spell that trumps all is the Bless spell. Blessings only affect sacred units, which endows them with the power of the gods selected at the creation phase. Either way, the commands are more or less just meant to nudge the AI in the right direction, but the game gives you enough command to make it matter. Beyond that, there isn't much. Actual gameplay is pretty normal, which is fine. Illwinter didn't go out to be the next Peter Molyneux, overpromising and underachieving. Everything works as it should, and has for the past millennia. Strategy games are always hard to talk about, because most of them follow suit and do the same thing with a different skin. If there isn't an interesting concept, it's just another game. I honestly thought after months of trying to explain Dominions, I'd have a lot more to say about it. I really wanted to do Dominions justice. I skipped over a lot trying to write this review, and I'm sure there's even more I missed on my own, because Dominions is a game that takes time. I enjoy Dominions. I can absolutely recommend it. I think it's an extremely interesting game, with the potential of being a great standout title. As long as future development continues to focus more on expanding gameplay, there's always enough content to make most nations feel unique, but not enough to make me play them differently. But Illwinter has continued to support and update the series for 2 decades, and are clearly willing to move forward and improve on standing concepts. A game of constant struggles, non-stop banish spells, and endless confusion, Dominions is not a game for everyone. But if you're willing to put in the time and enjoy a game for its functional depth, and put down $40, it is absolutely a unique experience.
They handed you the Morello case. Right out of the gate.
That's what the paper says, ain't it?
People like you.
Got a business proposition for you, Detective.
I ain't no businessman.
I'd really like to play the remake, but I doubt my PC will be able to run it, so yeah.